All right, guys, welcome to the second installment of which cars you can buy and basically own for free. If you watch my first video, I went through the cars that I felt were, somewhat easily attainable for most people, most car enthusiasts particularly, and they can, buy it, enjoy it, fix it up, and either sell it for what they paid for it, or even turn a little bit of a profit after a few years of ownership. So this one is going to focus on cars that are more expensive. These are cars that probably going to range between $25,000 to $60,000-$70,000 upwards, obviously depending on what kind of condition example you buy. So also, just I think I talked about it in the last video. When I talk about these cars, these are cars, I like to focus on cars that most people don't think about. It doesn't come to mind quickly. I'm a car enthusiast where I like the non-traditional type cars. When you go to a car meet or a track event, you're going to basically see a lot of the same cars that most people are going to be excited about. Corvettes, some of the high horsepower, the newer cars, Camaros, the newer Mustangs, things like that. The cars that bring me the most enjoyment are the cars that you just rarely see. Like, I love seeing at the track a car that you just don't see. It's not typically thought of as a car that people would put time and effort into to build it into a car that you can actually drive and enjoy. Perfect example is like if I saw a Conquest TSI or Starion at the track event, I'm going right to that car before I go to any of these more traditional cars that you see every day. So those are the cars that I'm kind of focused on. If you guys have any ideas, definitely feel free to chime in. I'm always interested in hearing about cars, particularly the cars that I don't think about. But cars in this series that would typically come to mind would be something like the E46 M3. I think majority of the people would it's kind of a consensus that that's a car that is loved by many. It's immediately comes to mind. So with that said, I wanted to focus on cars that excite me and that just most people don't think about. Maybe it'll spark some memories of a car that you guys had or cars that you completely forgot about. So to start the list off, the first car that I've been seriously considering, and I think I'm going to add it to my collection one day, it is the Porsche 928. Just a quick history of this car. It ran from 1978 until 1995. So it went through some changes, just a few changes. I mean, for the most part, it was pretty similar car throughout that run. It lasted so long. It didn't sell well. And also one other thing is, I personally don't believe the belief that the 928 was designed to replace the 911. I think that there's some beliefs in the automotive world that certain things that beliefs that I just don't believe. I personally, from my research, I don't think that the 928 was intended to replace the 911. I think what it was is it was Porsche's attempt at capturing a market that wasn't looking for just a dedicated, all-out sports car. I think that what should I say? The buyer's segment for some of these cars, I think it was a bigger segment to sell to people who are looking for more of a GT car, Grand Touring car, versus a Spartan, loud car like the 911. So if you just think back to the late 70s, it was technically obviously the incarnation of the 928. It started in the at least in the, I think it was like the 1974-ish. They started designing it and thinking about what they were going to come up with. It was a car that, if you really look at it, it's so much different from what Porsche offered back then. Porsche was offering the 911, the 924, I believe, and like the 914. I think those are the only three. The 944 hadn't come out yet, so the 944, I believe, came out in '83. So with that said, I think they were just looking for just a different car to satisfy, a larger segment of the car buying community, and I think it did its job. I think unfortunately it was just too expensive. I think the idea behind the car was definitely not a bad one, and I'll actually get into that a little bit later. But so I think the 928, unfortunately, I think because of this. This misbelief that I think people kind of shun the car, which I don't think that they should have. I think that I've always liked the oddball cars, and the 928's no exception. It's definitely a car that I think is very cool. Technology wise, I think it was pretty cool. It actually had two AC systems. It started out in the United States with a V8, a 4.5 liter V8, which I think unfortunately at the time it only put out like 228 horsepower, if I remember correctly. The neat thing about it is that I don't believe the 4.5 liter existed anywhere else. I think Europe got a 4.7 liter, and another thing about that is that the European market got at least in the early years of the 928, they got more horsepower. It was definitely the U.S. market cars were definitely toned down horsepower, particularly. I think the horsepower started matching the European counterparts in I think like 84, 85. It was definitely like in the mid 80s when I know that 1987 when they had the facelift, when it had the 5 liter, it was on par with the rest of the world. But with that said, yeah, the 928 started out with a 4.5 liter, then it eventually went up to a 4.7 liter, and then it grew to a 5 liter, and then in the last 3 years, 93 to 95, it actually had a 5.4 liter 345 horsepower engine. Another interesting fact about it is that this 928 actually was, I think, one of the first production cars to have the trans axle. So the transmission is actually in the back of the car, just like the C5 and newer Corvettes, which is pretty cool. So the car had basically 50-50 weight distribution because of that, and it had limited slip. And what else? The one thing about it is you could only get them in 5-speed. They were only available in 5-speed. Another interesting fact about it is that about 80% of the 928s produced were automatic transmission. So 20% are manual transmission, and I think that the reason why they went with the automatic was, because they were going for more of that GT, the Grand Touring car. If you read some of the reviews and watch some of the videos, a lot of people talk about how they sit in that car and they feel like they could get up to 150, 170 miles an hour and be right at home, just feel comfortable in that car. So it seems to be a very, very comfortable car driving at highway speed on the highway. It's definitely not, it's not built for really track use. Of course, you could use it for track use, but I think the way that the car is designed, it's definitely more of a Grand Touring car, which is fine. Another interesting fact about this car is you will not find many that are rusting. They were treated. I can't remember exactly what they treated the metal, but the 944s actually had the same treatment process on the metal, so they don't rust. And if you do find one that's rusting, it might have been in an accident and they didn't put the coating back on the metal. It's not zinc. I can't remember exactly what it is, but I used to know. But yeah, so a pretty interesting fact about those cars. For the most part, I will say once a few disappointments. I think the wheel sizes on them were not the greatest. I mean, I think the widest tire you could get on it was a 245, which I think for a car with a V8 it's a little disappointing. So yeah, and they were 16-inch. The main differences, the first the pre-facelift was from 1978 until 1986 and a half. That had the more old school look. It actually has I actually like that now. I'm starting to like the that version. To me, it really has a European look to it. 1987 was when they had the facelift, where they changed the wheel design a little bit, updated it, modernized it. The front bumper and turn signals were modernized, and the rear taillights and rear bumper were modernized. Those are different. What else? So from 87 to 95, not much changes occurred interior wise. Really, the only differences were like wheels, the rear wings. What else? That's pretty much it. Another cool thing about it is the car was designed. It had aluminum hood, front fenders, and I believe the doors to cut down on weight. So pretty cool. I mean, particularly at that time, having a aluminum body parts was pretty rare. Overall, very cool car. Another interesting fact about the engine is it has one of the longest timing belts used in a production car. I don't know if it still technically is, but it's an extremely long timing belt. So just a few things to look out for with this car. A lot of them you're going to find are neglected. Probably a lot of them aren't running. Unfortunately, a lot of people didn't do maintenance on these cars, so you're going to find a lot that unfortunately sat outside and are going to need a lot of work. Expect the interior, the seats, the leather on the seats, the dash is going to be cracked. These are going to be the cheaper cars, obviously. So, just be mindful when they say the most expensive Porsche is the cheapest Porsche. That's definitely, don't be surprised. It's going to hold true for this 928. Neat thing about it is you can actually still buy a lot of the new parts. There are obviously some that are discontinued, but some of the parts that I would have not expected to still be available, they still are. Of course, expect to be to pay a lot of money for some of these parts. Things like the clutch kit are extremely expensive. The flywheel, things like that. Overall, I can say that it's a very cool car. I would say that it's not for everyone. I think when it comes to this car, I think there's definitely a market for these cars, but I think the people who are looking for these cars are looking for ones that are completely sorted out. So if you're the kind that likes to work on cars, and I would say particularly a guy who likes to strip the car down and rebuild it and fix everything, I think that there's going to be a market for these where people are going to be willing to pay higher price for well sorted out cars. So that's why this car is definitely on my list. That I think that you will get your money back if you do it properly. But I think you're gonna have to fix everything, because people are gonna buy these cars, are gonna be looking for a car that they can basically just hop into it and drive and try to enjoy it as close to what it would be if it was a brand new car. Just a few interesting facts. The 93 to 95, definitely the most desirable. It has the model called the GTS, which is a wide body version of the regular 928. It came with a 5.4 liter, 345 horsepower. And these cars are going for a lot of money. You're going to be looking at least $100,000 for a manual transmission. A lot of those are obviously automatic, but if you're looking for a manual, I think one recently went for as much as $225,000. So I would say the most desirable, of course, the GTS, but I think the next ones will be the 87 to 92. The 928 S4, the updated front bumper and rear bumper and taillights. Another interesting fact is there's one called the 1986 and a half. And the reason why they called it an 86 and a half is because they actually started putting some of the 1987 S4 parts, like the brakes and a few other things that I can't remember, but it basically got some of the upgrades that the S4 that was coming out, it was going to come standard on that. So pretty cool. Me personally, I would love to own both. I would love to own a 87, 89 GT or an S4, and I would actually love to own like an 84 to 86 and a half. I think both are very unique in their own way. Also, just one last fact about it, you should check out some of the interiors. They call it, like, I think the psychedelic. The patterns that you could get if you got cloth were very interesting. They were like the psychedelic stuff from the 70s, which was pretty cool. Very odd. Like, when I first saw that, I thought someone custom did their interior, but no, you could actually order them from the factory that way. Most are going to be leather interior. So that's my first car. The second car that I would say I think is a pretty neat one was the 1994 BMW 325 IS. It's called the M Technic, and this was actually a pretty cool car where you could only get it. It was a one run, and it was actually a car designed to introduce the M3, the newly coming M3, the 1995. That obviously we didn't get the 94s and prior to that. So it was to basically introduce the U.S. market to the M3 that was coming. So basically what this M Technic 1994 325 IS was, it came only in Alpine White. It's technically also part of the individual program, and it came with special BBS wheels. The interior was the same cloth Hurricane interior, that black interior that you could get, that was only offered or mainly offered in the 1995 BMW Lightweight. And it came with the M3 front and rear bumpers, the side view mirrors. So it's basically a 325 with a lot of the appearance package of the E36 M3 that was coming to the United States finally. It had the same engine as the regular 2.5 liter E36 engine. So there was really no upgrades as far as power. It was mainly things like the appearance package. I don't even think that it got a limited slip. It might have, but these are cars that I think a lot of people don't know about. I think that only, is it 120? I think only 120 were made. So to find one is pretty rare, and I will say it's going to be difficult to find one that still has the original wheels on it. You can look them up. They're basically like the Style 5 wheels. To me, I think they could have looked better. I think they could have been a better wheel package, but the design is definitely different. And so yeah, pretty cool car. Other than that, there's not much else to say about it, but it's neat. It was actually a BMW individual program car, which are pretty rare. It's pretty rare that people opt for the individual program. And if you don't know what the individual program, it's basically like it's BMW's a program where you can customize a car to your liking. So the individual program will offer like unique colors that are not available on their standard non-individual program cars. So like, let's just say if you wanted to get a 3 Series with what is it? They're like a green color. I can't, off the top of my head, I can't remember. They actually just brought it back for the M2. It's a common, like a blue-green color. If you wanted that color, you had to order it through the individual program. So it's pretty cool. But yeah, they were only Alpine White. A pretty cool car. I mean, for whatever it was, I think I'm a big fan of limited production cars, and just those unique cars that you don't find too often. But I would say expect to pay at least $20,000 for a car that probably still needs work. I know that I remember back in the early 2000s, people were actually putting M3 engines into them. So you might find some that have already been kind of quote unquote upgraded to an M3. But yeah, it was definitely a car I wouldn't mind adding to my collection. Nothing really much more to say about that car. Pretty cool. So the next car that I would say I think is going to be a good one is the Lotus Exige. This is the one that is the mid-2000s It is a pretty cool car. It has a supercharger on it, so they have the Elise as well, which I think the Elise will be worth something. But I think the more in demand car will be the Exige. Very cool car. Inside, very Spartan. If you're looking for basically an all-out track car, without any of the creature comforts of even cars back then, that will be your car. Unfortunately, I don't know too much about this car. All I know is that I could say that this car is definitely a car that is going to be, it's not widely known of, but the people that are interested in this car are the buying segment that are willing to pay top dollar for them. So I will admit, I just randomly thought of this car. I can honestly say I've never even looked for this car. So and I'm always thinking about different kinds of cars. So that's one thing I can say, that's definitely a car that both of those cars would be a car that you should consider. And then I would say another car that I think is going to be, it already is. It's the E34, which is the 1988 to 1995. I could even be 1996. I think that. So it's the one that the M5 version of it. So it has the 6-cylinder, which is actually it's the same engine, same exact engine as the S14 engine out of the E30 M3, and it just has 2 more cylinders, which is pretty cool. It's definitely a high-strung motor. It's pretty maintenance intensive. Unfortunately, I can say that I don't know too much about this car, but I am very confident that this is a car that I can very much say that you will get your money back. It might even be one of those cars that goes up in value even more. So, but I'm a big fan of this car. It wasn't available in too many colors. I think it was only available in red, black, and white. I think that's it. It actually had pretty cool options for wheels. It had one style was like the fan of a jetliner engine. It had like multi-spoke wheels, which I think actually helped with the cooling of the brakes. I actually prefer that design. And then they also have one in the later years, which was it was a 5-spoke, but it was basically like a swoosh 5-spoke. It was very similar design to the contour wheels of the E36 M3. It was basically just ones that were kind of like turned a little bit, and it kind of had like a tail on each spoke. Very nice. I really like that wheel. That wheel actually looks very good on an E36 chassis as well. Those wheels are going for a good amount too. If you're looking to buy those, expect to pay at least $1,500, even more, $2,500 I've seen. So yeah, so that car, like I said, I don't know too much about them. I know that they're pretty difficult to find, and if you come across one, I actually came across one that was fairly cheap, and I just wasn't in the position to buy it. I think it was like $15,000. It obviously needed a lot of work, but I was willing to put in the work. But yeah, it was in someone's backyard, and you could see that it was not running. It was sitting for quite a while. But yeah, definitely a car worth considering. Obviously, the E28 also M5 could be on the list. I just don't think it's as desirable. I think the E34, and then another one I think is the E39 M5, the 2000 to 2005 M5, the V8 4.9 liter engine. I think that one's also another one. But I can honestly say between the three, I would go with the E34 M3. And so we have one more car on this list that I think most of you will already know once I say it. It's notoriously called the Clown Shoe, and so this is the 19. It's technically its roadster counterpart ran from 1996 until 2002. It was the Z3. It was the coupe version of it. It's the one that obviously, but a lot of people call it the clown shoe. It's called, the design's actually called the shooting brake. Shooting brake. Ferrari has a shooting brake design for one of their cars. So it's actually to a lot of people it's an ugly car, but if you're looking for performance, that is a great design for a car. And I think BMW did a fantastic job with that car, particularly in the later run of 2001 and 2002. They put in the S54 E46 M3 333 horsepower engine. It was actually rated at 315 in the M Coupe, and I think that was mainly just because of the exhaust system design and things like that. I don't think that they really quote unquote like detuned it. I think that it was just the fact of maybe a little more restrictive exhaust and intakes on it. But yeah, it's basically right around 333 horsepower. Another cool, interesting fact about that car is you could not get those in 6-speed. So all the only option for all M coupes and technically all that Z3s was a 5-speed manual transmission, or you could get it in automatic, of course. But yeah, so I'm assuming they did that because of a production cost. I think they were trying to keep that cost down, because it was a car that I think they kind of they knew it wasn't going to sell as well as obviously like M3 E46 M3s and things like that. So yeah, I mean, the 99 and 2000 version had the same engine, the S52B32 US spec. So it had the 240 horsepower E36 United States engine out of the 96 to 1999 E36 M3. So yeah, so pretty cool about that. Here, another interesting thing about the car. So if you bought the Roadster, the chassis were actually different between the non-M Roadsters and the Roadsters. So the non-M Roadsters actually had just the regular body, but if you got the M Roadster, it actually had wider fenders, rear and front. So you can clearly see the difference between what if you saw an M Roadster behind you, you would know that it was the M Roadster versus a non-M Roadster. But if you look at the coupes of that car, they all had the same body. So technically, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference between an M car or a non-M coupe. So that's pretty cool. I mean, I think you can still have a lot of fun with the non-Ms, but I think specifically the more attainable ones are going to be the 99 to 2000 S52 engine, the 240 horsepower. You're basically already looking at about a $40,000 car right there. If you're looking at the S54, you're expect to pay honestly $65,000-$70,000 just to get into them. Honestly, no, I mean, you won't even really be able to tell the difference between a 99 and a 2001, 2002. They look exactly the same. They have the same wheels. Everything's the same on them. I think you're going to have a harder time finding the 2001 and 2002. And here's a kind of a cool little personal experience. Back in the early 2000s, like 2001, 2002, I had a friend who actually had a 99 Astoral Blue M Coupe manual transmission versus a 2001 E46 M3. So it was the 240 horsepower M Coupe versus the 333 horsepower M3. We raced, and basically the only difference, they were dead even. The only difference was basically the extra red line of the M3 going to 8,000 RPM. So the E46 M3 would pull away just a little bit from 7,500 to 8,000 RPMs. And then right when the E46 driver would shift into the next gear, right back to dead even, went back to 7,500 to 8,000, it pull away just a little bit more. So very much very similar straight line speed. I can't even imagine what the S54 in an M coupe would be like. I think it's actually me personally. I'm probably going to actually get a non M coupe. I'm going to get a non M coupe and probably swap in an S54 6-speed. I'd like to actually go with the 6-speed. So yeah. So another cool thing, if you're considering a non M coupe with just a regular coupe, you could get them in the 2.3 liter, the 2.5 liter, the 2.8 liter, and the 3 liter. So the 2.5 liter and the 3 liters were the same M54 engines that were found in the non E46 M3 chassis. So you basically had the 184 horsepower 2.5 liter and the 225 horsepower 3 liter. I personally definitely would like the 3 liter. So the 2.3 and the 2.8 liters were available in the earlier, the 90. I think you could first get an M coupe in 90. It was either 98 or 99. I want to say 98. And then the M coupe came out in 99. But you could get the Z3 Roadster all the way back in 1996 with the 1.9 liter or the... Maybe that's when the 2.3 liter. Unfortunately, I can't remember. But yeah, it's something you can definitely look into. I personally think that you definitely want to look at the later the 2001 and newer 3.0 liters or even the 2.5 liters if you're going to do an engine swap. Definitely a great car just to tinker with. Definitely, I think you can get your money back. Other than that, I mean, I just think it's a normal BMW. Nothing else really stands out. You're gonna probably have a difficult time finding one that's non-silver. You expect I would definitely look for the blue or a black one or a white one over the titanium silver or the gray. I don't even know what else other color they came in. Red. So the two hot color, the three hot colors I would say for an M coupe would be the Alpine white, Imola red, and the Estoril blue. Those would, I would say, the three that you should focus on. So that's my 5 cars. I actually, funny thing is with this list, I actually had a little more difficult time coming up with a list of cars. So if you have any others, I left out cars like the NSX, the Supra, even the RX-7. So yeah, if you have any other ideas, I'm all ears. I love thinking about random cars. All right, I hope this entertained you guys. All right, see you in the next one.